Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks so much for spending some time with us on a chilly and somewhat unsettled Tuesday evening into Wednesday. Snowmageddon for Windsor, Essex. We'll see. They're calling for quite a bit of snow for the Windsor, Essex area as we open up the month of February. We are opening up season 2, episode 5 of the Bumanlag project. This is the live stream podcast where Windsor, Essex comes to talk, and we go behind the news and sort of have these conversations with folks that are making a difference in Windsor and Essex County, all focused around a anchor of positivity and having authentic conversations with folks that are doing some incredible work. My name is Arms, and if you're just joining us on the live stream, we are commenting with you on our program. As always, you can spend some time with us on the stream, and you can also check out our website too, armsbumanlag.com, for further guests and podcasts from the last season and a few episodes into season 2 already. Just before we welcome my guest to the program on the show today, we want to remind you that our annual blood drive is coming up on February 16th in the beautiful town of Amherstburg. In honor of my son, Liam, we'll be asking you to contribute, if you can, between 1 and 7 p.m. on Wednesday, February 16th at the Knights of Columbus Hall. We'd love to see you down there. We're looking for donors, blood.ca or 1-888-2-DONATE. Canadian Blood Services will be on the show in the next couple of weeks talking about the urgent need for blood donations here, not only in Windsor, Essex, but really across the province and the country as well. And what a crazy 24 hours, I guess really 48 hours we're going to be in over the next little bit. We're expecting a ton of snow. We're expecting some icy roadways, rain switching over into some sleet, into snow. And you might be thinking, well, I got to shovel out my driveway. I've got to, make sure that I can get to work in the morning, get the kids off to school. What about wondering if you have a place to put your head when severe weather like this is happening? There's an organization here in Windsor, Essex that's doing some tremendous work on the homelessness front, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And what really drew me to some of her work was the fact that they operate this food bank called the Kids First Food Bank. It serves about 900 individuals weekly within the Windsor, Essex area, really has no geographic boundaries to the clients that they serve. And they've done a number of different initiatives pre-COVID and certainly post-COVID in addressing accessible housing for those in need in Windsor, Essex County, and also doing some incredible work with social enterprise initiatives as well. I've known her for about 8 or 9 years, a number of different projects we've been involved together. I'm very happy and very honored to reconnect with my friend, Angela Yakonich, who is joining us here on the show. Hey, Ange, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
You too. I'm great. How's things, Arms?
Oh, surviving, right, in 2022 and trying to make our way through the world today, right? It's an interesting time, and I'm happy to connect with you. I know it's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up. First and foremost, how are you guys doing at the organization? How are you doing despite COVID and everything else that's been going on in the world today?
We're doing well. We managed to, when COVID started, there was a lot of panic. We didn't really know what we were going to do, how this was going to affect our clients. But we're doing well. We've managed to take this time to really regroup and see what's important and, create new programs. You brought up the food bank. That's been a bit of a challenge for sure. But you know what? I have an amazing team here. So we just keep pivoting, I guess you can say.
Now, for folks, Ange, who aren't familiar with the Windsor Family Homes Coalition Community Partnerships, what do you guys do? What are you looking to do to sort of collaborate this discussion and move those initiatives forward when it comes to accessible housing?
So we are primarily a social housing corporation. So we have 108 rent geared to income units, but they're scattered site units. So the reason behind that is having scattered site as opposed to one big building. We put people all throughout the city instead of concentrated in one area. They're in quote unquote normal neighborhoods. We have a lot of units in Walkerville, and our houses are unmarked as well. So it removes that stigma. In addition to that, we support the people that we house. So, people that are living at or below the poverty line often come with challenges. So we try our best to not only house these people, but make sure they have everything they need to stay housed.
Ange, I mean, we've known each other since like 2014. We used to work out together. And I think we got to know each other very well in the sense of, what you do in the community, and then certainly coming on my shows over the years too, to talk a little bit about the importance of getting folks to that particular situation where they can be housed and sort of start them off in a good direction. That is like 6 7 years ago, right? So when we talk about that now, here in 2022, what do you think are, outside of the COVID situation, which I wanted to talk to you about that and what the pivots you guys have had to make over the years too. It's crazy when you say years about it. It's been really 2 years of this. Why are we making, I guess, progress when it comes to addressing some of these big issues when it comes to affordable housing and accessible housing as well?
You talk about like way back in 2014 when I used to go into schools to do education at that time, I would say things to the kids like, um, what does a homeless person look like? And do we see homeless people sleeping on the street? And at that time, we didn't. It was very, very rare to see someone. So, I've been involved with the city's plan to end homelessness since the start of it. I do think we're making progress because I understand evidence-based best practices, but of course, we're seeing an increase now. What the city, along with all the other organizations, is doing is we have what's called a by names prioritized list. So what that does is we know every person, or we try to know every person experiencing homelessness by name, and then they are assessed based on their acuity level. So what I've been doing with my organization is we have been working to house people who are considered chronically homeless. So the definition of chronically homeless is 6 or more months over the past year, and that can be sporadically or continuously. So to date, we have housed, since I've been with this organization just shy of 4 years now, we've housed 25 individuals from the by names prioritized list. So these are all higher risk people who have been what's called chronically homeless. And we make sure we have wraparound supports. So that support's coming from us, and that can come in the way of access to our food bank. That can come in the way of social work. We have a social worker on site. We work very closely with the University of Windsor, so we always have 3 or 4 social work students as well. We make sure their basic needs are met. If we go out to a unit to do like a wellness check and somebody doesn't have a toaster or something, we have a little bit of funds to do things like that. So just making them feel like they're at home. Mm-hmm. So to date, what we know statistically is that usually when people are chronically homeless, it takes them a very long time to get stable in housing. We've housed over 25 individuals who are chronically homeless, and we've only had 1 failed tenancy so far in 4 years. So we know that supports work. So my shift from before I was doing, when I was with the Homeless Coalition, I was doing a lot of advocacy, and this is how we end homelessness. Now I've really shifted where I need to make sure people are staying housed, because I can house all the people. I can build, 2,500 units, but if I can't keep them housed, I'm doing these people a disservice.
Yeah, it becomes, I don't want to say like a revolving door, but it becomes essentially, right? A revolving door. You want to make sure that they're able to stay housed and also feel empowered, right? I mean, there's a part of that as well. So it's like, okay, so we're going to make you feel, like you said, included and certainly, for lack of a better term, like it's their home, that sense of home predatorship. So it's not this, again, carousel that keeps coming in and coming out.
Absolutely. I worked in the shelter system for a few years before I went into the community development piece of it. And I saw people come back through the door month after month after month. They just didn't know how to, a lot of times they don't know how to live without their community either. They're lonely. So by making sure that we are providing, even a social outlet for people, we're finding that it's really helping.
You said we're making strides, right? And I really hope we are, as a region and really as a country too, because I think the long-term effects, and I've said many times here on the show, of the global pandemic COVID-19, I think we're going to start to see from an economic standpoint, and I think we're going to see from certainly a mental health standpoint in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I think we're going to see the ramifications of the last 2 years really come to surface. What really struck me is we were talking just before we went live here. I'm very blessed that I'm back in the city for work now, and when I'm on the road, I do travel to certain sections of the city, and I do meet with donors from our lens at the society. I used to work in downtown Windsor for a long time, as you know, between CTV and CBC and all those things, and doing a lot of live shoots on Olette Avenue over the years too. And I used to be a downtown resident before my wife and I moved out to Amherstburg. I don't remember seeing as many folks on the street as I did over the last couple of months. On not just even on Olette, but just on some of those secondary side streets. Like I do know that there is a homeless epidemic, but I don't remember seeing that many folks that are out there. Is it because of the pandemic? Do you think there's been those housing issues, Ange, or is it something else?
I definitely think that it has impacted people's mental health. So going back to, say somebody was chronically homeless for years, they were housed, now they're isolated again. So did they go back to the street? That's quite possible. In doing this for as many years as I've been doing it, since 2013, I am still shocked with the amount of people that I do see on the streets. I think to an extent, people are afraid to stay in shelter because it's a congregate living situation. They're afraid to get COVID. The city has stepped up tremendously and had temporary shelter sites when there's been outbreaks at certain shelters so that they can separate people a little bit more. But shelter capacity at our biggest shelter in the city is down to 80 people. It was well over 100 for the physical distancing reasons. It's do we need a bigger shelter? I don't think so. I think we need to have long-term solutions. But
Sure.
yeah, like you said, Arms, I'm floored every day because we're downtown with what I see. I come to work in the morning and there will be a sleeping bag in my doorway, which is something I never saw even 4 years ago when I started here.
It's one of those things I think, Ange, like when I was at the CBC, and one of our, I guess, tent poles of some of the original journalism that we were trying to pump out at the time was to highlight homelessness as an issue that obviously affected everyone, and that was something I know that we covered extensive. But it strikes me where you have an issue that is prevalent as homelessness, and you have these different types of fundraisers, and you have these different kind of outreach initiatives which are needed. I mean, on a night like tonight when the temperature is going to drop and the snow comes, I mean, there's obviously finding folks shelter from the storm that's coming. But then there's the other side of that too, where, and to, I said, sort of piggyback on what you've said, um, you want to find those long-term solutions,
Mhm.
right? Because otherwise it's putting a band-aid over the problem. I think those band-aids are needed. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think if we're not addressing why this is happening and then getting folks out of those particular positions into a better spot, figuratively and literally, and making sure that they can sustain it, and we're there to help them, I think that is going to pay off long term, as opposed to just consistently doing the band-aid solutions, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think it really needs to, it needs to be highlighted so much that supports are so needed. And there's a lack of funding for supports. Just for example, when I started here, we have a social worker on site. I didn't have funding for her position. So I purchased a affordable building so that I had the income to continue paying a social worker on site. Housing dollars can't go towards that. As I said, I don't want to make people homeless again. I don't want to see people go back to homelessness. Um, the long-term solutions are what's needed. Absolutely, we need more housing. That's a whole challenge in itself. But it's once we get people housed, making sure they're staying housed and not ending up right back in the same situation they were in before.
You know, that's a big topic too, Ange, too, when it comes to, yeah, not only just accessible housing but affordable housing, and what do homes look like maybe in the next 10 to 15 years. And actually, to go back to CBC Hamilton just did an excellent piece on a gentleman who went through all the permits through the city. And I know I'm thinking very new agey on this, but actually had everything, all the ducks, and the T's crossed and the I's dotted in those shipping container homes, right? As a smaller type of home. And I know that there's been locally a bit of a push for some of the smaller homes too. But do you think it's a combination of maybe thinking outside of the box on how we're housing folks, or where people can kind of get their foot in the door when it comes into uh, you know purchasing a home versus some of the supports that you guys put out, and making sure people are in that position to get them back to work and get them back into that home ownership lens.
Home ownership, I think, is out of reach for a lot of people now. I'm scared for my 16-year-old son who loves money and he works. But is that going to be realistic at the same age I purchased the house? I don't know.
Sure.
There is now, we're able to do what's called additional dwelling units. And there's properties in the city that have already been zoned to add something like modular housing. We actually looked through the app last week, and 9 of our properties qualify. So that's 9 units we're hoping to put up in the next couple of years.
Awesome.
It's a matter of getting funding, stuff like that. But that would be on the side of the tiny home. And then there's things like garages, secondary suites where garages can be converted. So these are all ways, and yes, looking outside the box is definitely what we have to do. In these 9 properties that I'm talking about, because they're 2-story units, we could even stack the modular houses on there. It's just a matter of getting moving on all of it and getting all the permits and all that other stuff. But I think that the city of Windsor realizes the need is there. And by them zoning everything this way already, I think we're in a good position to start moving on these things.
Honestly, it drives me. I mean, I don't pretend to know zoning rules or anything like that and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I almost want to see these communities be built up and kind of be, grown to success through what could be done in certain areas of the city that, could have an influx of folks. Like I said the other day to somebody, I remember way back when they used to have grocery stores right in downtown. And it's like if you can't keep people into a certain area of the city for whatever reason, you can have those amenities and they have a better quality of life there too. So it'd be interesting to see where this all goes over the next little bit too. But you'd mentioned funding and lack of funding, and like what will it take to make sure, obviously you guys have had success that you continue to receive that funding and get more funding to expand your programs.
I think it's going to take a whole lot of advocacy on people like myself's parts to not the municipal government. They understand the need for supports. I think it goes further than that. It's, like I said, we can build all the houses, but if they can't keep the people housed, it's sort of pointless. So me being allowed to use housing dollars for supports would be incredibly helpful.
I'm sure that there's probably, and in your realm too, and you're probably in contact with folks who are doing your position in different areas of the country, different areas of North America. There's probably been success, right, that you've heard of, and ways that they've sort of expanded on those supports that you've seen over the last little bit that you could probably replicate here in Windsor if given the proper funding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're a smaller organization. I have a staff of 6 here, so we operate a little differently than other places. It's the same kind of challenges in other communities as well. But it just depends on their funding streams. Having even funding for a 3-year period would be better than me just getting, say, a $20,000 grant that's not even going to cover one's salary. But I know that provincially we're all having the same challenges. But we know just based on other communities how the Housing First philosophy works with wraparound supports. So it's just getting people to understand that there's more to housing than just a house.
I guess a large part of that is education, right? Educating folks who are, like myself, living in the bedroom communities who don't necessarily get to see, the real situation of what the real reality is from day to day, and saying, yeah, this is what we need to do. This is proven to work, and we want to make sure that everything that we're doing is sustainable.
Yeah, and it's part of my job is being out in the community and educating people, but due to COVID, I haven't been able to do as much of that as possible. But I've really taken these last 2 years to really learn what I need to educate people on. So it's you talked about Band-Aids. So we see people doing sleeping bag drives. Well, that's great and all, but once people are housed, how are we going to help them? How are we going to help them get there in the first place? Because I can give them a sleeping bag today. Where are they going to put it tomorrow when they have nowhere to go during the day? So it's just, thinking sort of long term versus this. Of course, people need to be warm.
Sure.
and I'm not saying that, but it's getting people behind all these people that want to do, making meals for people, which is fantastic. And, doing a hat and glove drive. Those are all things I can do here very easily. It's how do they support us long term so that we don't end up with the same situation again.
Sure. And I think doing those drives and doing those things are vitally crucial, right? Like you
Oh
still like you can do them. It's great when the community does them, and they're needed. However, like you said, it's almost like digging in for the long haul, right? It's digging in and putting in
yeah.
the
Mhm.
real roll up your sleeves. This is how we got to get it done, because I think to institute that kind of change and to get that kind of advocacy behind you, that requires a lot of grit, that requires a lot of tenacity, and that requires funding and people to sort of, I don't want to say pull their resources, but certainly combine their talents and strengths to make those changes happen for the betterment of the people that you guys serve.
Absolutely. And when I see people doing these amazing things to support their community, I want to say to them, but what happens next? I'm glad they're fed tonight and I'm glad they're warm tonight, but what happens next? So, and I don't think people always look at the big picture. They're just looking at that immediate need. Um, so it's, getting people, it's almost like, what would they do if there were no homeless people anymore? Well, now we need to step on that side of making them not end up back in homelessness again. So it's just, like you said, it's education, getting people to understand that the problem doesn't just go away with these little things. It's a whole huge package of things that we need to do.
I'd imagine too, Ange, for a lot of the clients that you serve and the folks who come through the doors and the people that you work with and your staff work, which I want to talk about your staff in a minute too. Um, the, Generally speaking, these folks want that opportunity, right? They want to be able to put themselves in a better position for whatever reason they were in that particular position. And to have that support in place, you must have some feedback, right? Where these folks are able to kind of direct themselves into saying, yeah, this was the turning point for me to get into a home and maintain it and make it accessible, uh, because I had no other choice, and this was crucial for me to be in this particular position.
It's we actually were just talking today about, we have a couple of really big success stories, and it's that, how did we support them to get there? So for example, we have one client who was homeless for over 20 years. They were living under a tree. So what we know from statistics is that the likelihood of this individual staying housed was very, very slim, incredibly high risk. We will be on May 3rd at 4 years housed for this person.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and this is that's a big one. That was a really good start to my job here. But it's, looking at examples like that, looking at those kinds of stories, because do they happen often? No, but we have to celebrate the small victories. We're, with our social work department, we're working on plans because, as we know, there's rent supplements that are expiring in the next few years. Luckily, all of ours don't expire till 2024, but that's several units of people that won't be able to pay their rent. So it's coming up with these plans with people and having them be part of that plan. So what does that look like for you? Does that look like going back to school? Does that look like coming and volunteering for us to get some work experience? So, there's a lot of layers to it, but giving people that sense of empowerment is what we really want to do here.
And kudos to you from an executive director position too, to have the foresight to include the people that you serve in that particular process, right? I think that is something that it's such an easy thing to do, right? Is to hear directly from quote unquote the horse's mouth on, hey, like what does this look like for you? How do you how can we support you? That doesn't often happen, honestly, Angela, that I've seen in my experience, where you're able to hear somebody really get into the weeds, so to speak, and say, hey, we're developing these things, we need direct feedback from the people that we are going to be serving. I think that's a testament to what you've done and what your team has done at the organization.
Thank you. We always get people involved as much as we can. The majority of our volunteers are people that we work with as well. Um, it just, I can't, like you, Arms, I live out in the county, I live in Tecumseh. I don't have the same experience as the people we're serving. So I can't serve someone if I don't know their actual needs. If their needs being met might be very different than mine, may be very different than our social workers. There's a big age gap. My social worker is very young. So it's just, it's always about meeting people where they're at for us. So like I said, does that mean going back to school? Maybe not for some people. Maybe
Sure.
that just means staying housed. Maybe that means learning how to cook. But it's that sense of them wanting a little bit more for themselves, and we'll assist however we can.
Speaking of your staff, I got to tell you, like the one time, I think this was pre-COVID, we came out to do some video shoots for you, and we got to meet some of your staff. And you can tell people who are there for the paycheck, and you can tell people that are there for the purpose. And it's okay to be there for the paycheck because we're all there for the paycheck. But it's also, I think there's a blessing to have people who really do give a damn. And I was really impressed with your staff that I met, who were not only invested in the success of what you guys were doing and what you continue to do, but they actually cared. Like hearing some of the stories when we were there on site, taking a look at the Kids First Food Bank and some of the initiatives that you put forward and continue to grow, which I want to talk about further on here on the show here in a bit, which I thought was really interesting and neat. But to have that sort of camaraderie and that compassion, I think that's key, right? I mean, you must see this when people come in to try to utilize services that you guys run. It's also that compassion piece. It's that empathy piece that goes along with it.
Absolutely. So when I started here, I always laugh. I had my first staff meeting, and I told my staff at the time that I was going to house as many people who were chronically homeless as possible. Well, the jaws dropped because it's always a challenge, right? They're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yep." And I said to them in that moment, if you're not here because you want to help people, then I don't know if this is going to be the place for you going forward. Has it been easy over 4 years? No. But yes, people here are genuinely invested in what we do. Being a landlord has its own set of challenges, but then trying to be a social support as well adds a whole other layer to it. My staff are incredible. They all genuinely care about what we're doing. It's every day. Our programs coordinator will come in and she's like, I have this great idea for another program, or, can we do this for so-and-so? So it helps having a small staff. But it helps that we have personal relationships with all of our tenants. They know all of us by name. They know who we are. But yeah, like you said, they're so invested in what we do and so invested in making these positive changes and making sure the people we serve are actually served to the best of our ability.
What struck me too was a big piece of I think what your staff do and continue to do. Again, having that sort of empathy with the people that you serve, but also allowing them to provide that feedback for the organization. But then you continue to grow your programs because when you had us out for the Kids First Food Bank, that was something that was I think concept was relatively new. But that when you talk about food banks and that sort of realm in the age of COVID, I'd imagine it hasn't been easy, right, to maintain that through the last 2 years with lockdowns and obviously a bit of a fear of COVID in general, right, in the public.
Right. So when you came out, we had just had this set up where it was grocery store style, and the whole point of that is to, I guess, customize somebody's shopping experience. They get to come in and pick the things that they need that are best for their family, based on their culture, based on their preferences, of course. I mean, we don't go to a grocery store and we get what we get. So when COVID started, we had to shut that down immediately. So what we did was we installed a plexiglass window so people can come and check in there, and we have them stand in the doorway, and we have our volunteers shop for them. So you can hear them from the front of the food bank yelling, do you want Kraft dinner? Do you want chicken? So they're still getting choice, and we pride ourselves on that. Would we love to have people come back in and be able to have their little shopping cart again? Yes. Will that happen anytime soon? I don't think so. That was a big shift for us. especially since it had just started. I think we were less than 6 months into that whole system, and we had to switch it all up again. So
When you talk about expanding services and doing interesting things that are in the realm of, I guess the need that's in the community, I know something that you're very passionate about is fitness. We both come from that particular realm. I give you credit that you continue to pursue it. I kind of fell off the wagon a bit over the last couple of years when it comes to physical fitness, but I know this is something that you've championed as a social enterprise, and I think it's pretty interesting what you've done, and had a chance to launch pre-COVID at least with this, and get people kind of wrapping their heads around that sort of mental health aspect of working out too.
So when I came to the agency, I did a tour in the basement. Was an old karate dojo, and it literally had horse stall mats that were 30 years old, and then wrestling mats that had duct tape all over them. It smelled like mold, but there were some old treadmills, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be a gym. Like I just right away, I'm like, we can have a gym on site. I can have a gym at work. I had an admin assistant at the time who had a HK background. So she'd actually gone to school in the States and worked with Division I athletes. So she knew what was up when it came to fitness. So we started working on some stuff. We did a couple small fundraisers. We got some funding from Home Depot Foundation, and we started to rip out what we could. We put down the cheapest mats we could. We painted the walls gray and called it a day. And we had some super cheap equipment down there, and it was fun. So we pride ourselves on doing creative social work, especially with kids, because we want to, if we can, prevent that cycle of poverty. So we want to get kids involved where they can, get them involved in things they may not otherwise have opportunity to. So we started what we called Kids First programs. So our social worker started an after school program called Nourishing Young Minds. So kids would come in and they would make a healthy snack. The healthy part of it was always debatable when I would come in and see what they were eating. But okay, the kids had fun with it, which was great.
Sure.
They would do some sort of mindfulness activity with our social worker, and then they would go down for a little bit of a workout. So at the time, we had students from St. Clair College from Health and Fitness. So they would be here to do all kinds of stuff with them. They did tug of war. It was great. It was going well. And then COVID hit. So we had to completely shut it all down. And the plan was for that summer, we were going to have a kids camp. Well, again, we couldn't have that. We didn't know what lockdowns would look like or anything like that. So it sort of came to a screeching halt. So in that time, I had some conversations with my trainer, and we started sort of talking about the possibility of what that gym could look like. I should have sent you some pictures before and afters, but and what it could actually be. And I'm like, there's grants out there for social enterprises. So I started applying for grants. So first Home Depot came through with another $10,000. And then we were able to sell all of our equipment because remember, it's the height of COVID and everybody was desperate for
Oh, wow.
equipment.
Yeah.
So we were able to sell off a lot of that and buy better equipment. Well, it started, and then we got $35,000 from Canadian Tire Jumpstart, and 25 of that was allotted towards equipment. So we went all out. So this gym, the before and after of it is unreal. We have a huge mural on the one wall that one of my girlfriends did for us. And it's all different pieces of Windsor, which is amazing. We've got a turf track down there. We've got all Rogue equipment. So when we have people come in to use this facility, they are working out with the best of the best. So how it works is we now have 2 trainers. One just started this week, actually. They rent space from us to train their clients. So they are independent contractors. But in addition, so those dollars go right back into our programs. Mm-hmm. So that helps us run any programs outside of gym programs. In addition to that, they have to donate at least 4 hours a month towards delivering programs. So that can be maintenance of anything in the gym, which we're not going to really do that up here. But what they mostly do is they do either after school programs or camp programs. So we have kids that are going down there and doing small group training. We ran a girls weightlifting program right before the last lockdown. We were able to actually complete 8-week program with 4 girls, which was pretty cool. So they learned Olympic style lifting. And the plan is just to keep expanding those programs and offering them for free for families in need. You know, the majority of the kids that we see here, their parents can't afford to put them in CrossFit. You know,
Sure.
CrossFit is hundreds of dollars a month. And usually the kind of sports they have access to that are on the cheaper side aren't necessarily what somebody wants. You know, there's free basketball leagues and that's fine, but maybe they want to do something else. So we try to do a little bit of everything here. So the plan is to have eventually 5 trainers down there paying us rent and delivering programs. So that's, you know, that's 20 hours a month of programs, of sport programs for youth in our community. And we don't stick this to youth. We're going to do some mom and me programs and stuff like that too.
Sure.
So yeah.
Oh, I think that's brilliant, and it's right up your alley too. I think it's, and with the connections you've made over the years, with the team that you've put in place, and certainly with the connections you have in the fitness community too, to have that kind of grow and have something. You know, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, yes, the sleeping bags are needed, and the toques and the food drives and all that stuff is needed, but when you get this rolling as a sustainable social enterprise, you're feeding the beast, so to speak, right? Like you're providing a direct benefit, because like you said, a lot of these kids aren't going to go through, you know, organized sports or anything like that, but it gives them a more positive outlet. And I think from even a mental health aspect too. I mean, I know you and I can talk for hours on the benefits of mental health and working out,
Yeah.
but it gives them that one up in a professional lens too, to have those trainers. I know that you know some of the best in the city who are involved, to give them a good start, and something to look forward to, because I'm sure that these kids look forward to coming in, right?
Oh, for sure. You know, last summer we were lucky enough, Canada Summer Jobs funded um, for students to run a summer camp for us. And then Canadian Tire Jumpstart did the operations of it. So all of the extra equipment, all of the art supplies, stuff like that. And then Windsor Christian Fellowship catered lunches every single day. So
That's
every
awesome.
day the kids would have some sort of physical activity. So we didn't want to stick just to gym stuff because that's not everybody's thing either. You know, basketball may not be someone's thing. So we let the kids have input on what they wanted to do. So they'd sit down and decide. So we had spike ball in the park. We had badminton. We had volleyball. The last day of camp, the weather was horrible. So we rented one of those inflatable obstacle courses and had that inside. We did field trips. We found that the kids were really drawn to art activities and mindfulness activities. So we just tried to bring it all together. And it worked really well. The first 2 weeks were a challenge because it hadn't been done here for a long time. But we're super excited because we're able to run a March break camp now along the same lines. And with this new trainer, they'll have a couple different options of different sports. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Get back to some normalcy, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I hate to say it, but yeah, it's true. It's like, get back to, it's been, I said to my wife, Kara, actually before we came on live tonight, I was telling her I was going to be on with you, and she's like, man, it's been, how long have you seen, I've said, you've seen Anne since we did the video shoot with her. And she's like, oh my God, that was like almost 3 years ago. And it's like, it's been 2 years of this,
Yeah, and
right? And
it's
it's hard. It's like, it drives me nuts, sort of cut you off, Ange, but it's like, people are like, well, we're all in this together. Yeah, but we're all like, we are, but some of us are in very different boats. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are folks who are fortunate, and I consider myself to be one of those people who are able to work majority from home, right? But at the same token, there are folks who are really trying to get back to some sort of normalcy. And if you're able to provide that in a safe realm, especially with this March break camp for the kids, I think that's, it's a step in the right direction for the organization as a whole post COVID.
it is, and it is that sense of normalcy. It's, having fun again, being able to, like, my girls' school, they're not even doing gym class right now because they were told COVID's too bad. So, you know, just give them an outlet, and it's free for our tenants' kids, right? Um, and then we always expand it beyond our tenants' kids too. Anybody who basically is in need, obviously we have a cap on that, but it's just, I was hesitant in putting the March break camp together because I was unsure, are we going to be locked down again? And then it's that whole sense of disappointment. Hopefully things keep going the way they're going right now and we can run it, because we're really excited. And, we have families that attended camp in the summer and then were able to give back. They saved some money and they were able to give back and adopt a family or contribute to some of our Christmas programs. So it's really cool to just see it all come full circle. And the ones that really, really, really want to come back and can't wait, we can't wait to approach them and say, hey, you know what, this is what we've got going on March break.
Kudos to you. I think it's a kick-ass program, and again, right up your alley, and I know Brad's alley, and everybody who's involved with it too. And just another way that I think that's whole social enterprise piece it's really fascinating to see how that's really ballooned. That kind of concept of a social enterprise, at least from my perspective, working alongside nonprofits for so long, from a media realm, you do the very important events like you do when you can. What I thought was fascinating too is a lot of these organizations, when COVID hit, you'll see it like everybody's doing online raffles and lotteries and different things like that, and you know um, try to think of those particular galas or those events that we would go to over the years, and that's. I mean, like you said, hopefully that comes back, but like in the next 6-7 months, I think there's definitely a comfort factor for a lot of folks where even if it's safe to do so. I think it's going to be kind of like that, kind of easing into the bathwater, so to speak, for a lot of folks, right?
Yeah.
So to have something sustainable like a social enterprise, I think it's brilliant. I think, and I'm sure that this is probably something where you've probably had conversations with folks who, again, do your gig across the area. They're probably like, "Oh, this is kind of neat," see if we can kind of implement this on our end too.
I had that opportunity, and of course fitness is a passion of mine. So it just sort of, it worked. And the fact that I knew Brad so well, and I knew that he'd be good at the job, and I've seen him he's trained my kids. I knew it could work. The shutdowns have been destroying us. We hope to be way further along than we are by now, but with this too, we've got a couple other ideas for social enterprises in mind. We're looking to build a kitchen in the back.
Wow.
A certified kitchen that we will be able to have our clients come in and learn to cook, learn different, just basic life skills. And also, I mentioned that we try to be super creative about how we do social work. The majority of our clients have been social work to death. They don't want to come to our office and sit in a chair across from us and tell us their problems. So by us putting together, or us saying, oh, we're going to have a women's group, let's talk about whatever. By us providing that venue for people, especially women, to cook together and just have conversations start organically, we think that could really work well. It's a form of social work that is often overlooked. Social work can be so many things. It's not just, me writing down and taking case notes. So that's the next goal, is that. And then in addition to that, we hope to have people cook things that can be given out in the food bank. So there's where the social enterprise piece comes into that as well.
Wow. I think that's brilliant too. And I just to go back to when you have people cooking together, and if you're teaching that, I always say that's something they should be drilling home in grade school and in high school is cooking. And then finances as well, right?
Yeah.
Like basic understanding of finances. I still maintain that, and I'm 40, and I'm still wrap my head around stuff. In the last couple of years, I've kind of wrapped my head around his investments and all that kind of stuff. And it's incredible that those particular very essential building blocks are not accessible to folks as they age, even when they're kids to teenagers. And to have that, even like cooking for your end, I think that'll go very well.
I hope so. So we've applied for some funding for that. So hopefully that comes through. We're just trying to be so creative in how we work with people. Because when people have been part of the system their entire lives, they're kind of over that typical, telling my story and being forced to sort of do things, as opposed to being empowered, like I mentioned before, to start to enjoy something. Maybe we'll have somebody come in that wants to cook and decides, hey, I want to be a chef. How cool would that be? It's, providing that opportunity for people to find out what they're good at as well.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, where it's like, I think from a bureaucratic standpoint, I think a lot of organizations, and I think we're going to see, and this is my rant, my old man arms rant on the show. There's one an episode, I always say, but I always think, if there's going to be a silver lining to the pandemic on anything, I think we've kind of seen that from a lot of folks who are able to do flex time, right? The whole concept of flex time 2 years ago was so foreign, I think, to a lot of businesses. Oh, well, you got to be here for 9 to 5. But then I think the pandemic happened and a lot of that flex time happened for
Mm-hmm.
folks that are a lot more appreciative of their employers, but they're also more apt to go above and beyond. But if you flip that on its head a bit and say, in this particular realm, there's an opportunity here for us to allow people to do what they do and do what they do by sort of accentuating their talents.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this case, even with the kitchen, I think that it'll go like very far with folks as well, because again, it's an essential life skill that not everybody has.
Uh, Absolutely. And one of the biggest things we talked about is we have so many clients that are different cultures. How awesome
Mm-hmm.
would it be to have them come in and teach other people uh, something from their culture, that like something that's a traditional food from their culture, like those types of things where um, kids too. Kids don't know, everybody, I want to be a policeman. Maybe they'll come in and find a love of cooking, um, something different. And there's a big shift in what kids want to do now there's a big push for trades and things like that, as there should be. And just as many opportunities as we can provide for people to, like you said, discover their own talents is what we want to do.
So speaking of talents, I know physical fitness is a passion of yours. How the hell have you been able to maintain, like, dude, I have packed on so much weight from COVID. Like, it's kind of crazy, right? And I'm like, and Carrie says to me, you got to start working out. You got to even do stuff at home. How have you been able to sort of maintain what you do and what you've done? I know when we used to work out together many moons ago, I mean, we did deadlifts, all that kind of stuff. How have you been able to do it? Like you said, in and out of lockdowns, and you're a mom and you're an
I
executive director. How?
The past couple years have been sort of inconsistent. So right before COVID happened, I had some medical stuff going on. So I was very limited in working out, which, as you know, was very difficult for me mentally. And then COVID happened and the gym shut. I have a gym at work. So
Well, I mean, yes.
that was huge. That was a lifesaver for me. Um, I have a personal relationship with my personal trainer, and obviously he works here now. So he was able to program for me, stuff like that. It's just something I know for me. I was in a really cruddy place when I started training close to 7 years ago now. Um, it's something I need to do, especially through the pandemic, to keep me
Same.
sane. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's now it's like, it's funny. I mean, you know me, I when I was working out with you way back when, it was like, yeah, I'd go there about 4 or 5 times a week. Yeah, I get married, have my son. My son's got the, different issues with his heart. So, a lot of career pivots for me. But now it's like, I've just turned 40 myself, and it's like, hey, I need to seriously figure something out. And like, I mean, I used to do 5Ks, no problem, but like I've gone for walks and things like that. And I don't discount it. I mean, just even to get out of the house, get out of my office, for an hour just to get some fresh air. I think it's so crucial too. And I think hopefully people slow down a little bit when it comes to that. I think especially in our neighborhood, I've seen a lot of folks who kind of take their quote unquote lunch breaks or go out and about and sort of experience the outdoors too. So I think that's pretty crucial to do too, because like you said, it's physical fitness is so crucial to folks' well-being. It should be ingrained. Like you don't run a car into the ground, right? You take it in for tune-ups. Like you have to consistently tune yourself up so you feel better and you're a little bit more um, apt to tackle life's challenges. And then to do what you guys are doing, to offer that to folks, to kind of build that into their day to day, I think that's a big success story too.
What I've done as well is over the past few months, I've incorporated what's called wellness hours for my staff. So they get 2 hours per week to do whatever they want that will make them well. So it started out, I sort of was pushing the physical fitness type thing a bit. And I'm like, you know what? Physical fitness looks very different to other people than it does to me. Like I power lift. So that's fun for me. That's not fun for other people. But I noticed a couple of the girls, they go and do a bar class outside of here. So they're able to take this hour before lunch. So they're able to be gone for 2 hours a couple times a week. They'll sometimes leave early at the end of the day to go and hang out with their kids and play outside with their kids. So it's that providing that space for them to be well. Because I know when I take my wellness hours, I'm right downstairs doing my thing down there. So
That's awesome. So, before we wrap it up here on the show, if you want folks who are listening to the podcast after the fact, watching the rebroadcast, to know something about the organization and how crucial it is to continue your programs, what do you want them to know about what you guys are doing at your location?
I think that just even call me and ask me for a tour so I can explain to you a little bit more about what we do. The importance of not only housing people, but keeping them housed. The importance of providing accessible housing and also housing that is safe. And I left that word out, safe and affordable housing is huge for us. We don't want people to live in a dump, for lack of a better term. Come and visit our food bank. Come and volunteer. We need volunteers. Like I mentioned to you one time, donations. We're always looking for donations, of course. We're a charity. But I think some of the things that are sort of overlooked in our food bank for donations are things like grocery gift cards versus giving me a few cans of soup, because we work with the grocery stores to buy things in bulk. Cash obviously always goes a long way. We really want to let people know what we're doing in the community. We want to touch every child that we can. Obviously our tenants come first, but we want to work with every child in the community, mostly in the downtown core, the highest need community in the west side, to be able to provide these services for. So the more we can expand services and the more people know about us, the better.
I've got a comment here on Facebook from Eric. He says, just any thoughts on how to help people break out of the poverty cycle? I don't understand how people can afford housing, food, etc. It's funny. Eric should bring that up too. I mean, we kind of touched base on that earlier on the show about, the cost of housing, right? But then even look at the inflation too, right? I mean, that's something we didn't really touch base on, Angela, too, is inflation, gas prices. I mean, it's growing. Right? I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Breaking out of the cycle of poverty from a cultural standpoint is something I can help with. As for economically, I don't even know. I don't even know where to start right now. I know I filled up my gas tank today and it cost me $100. Yeah. I almost had a heart attack. So I can't imagine that people who already have challenges financially, emotionally, maybe there's addictions, mental health. So what we try to do, like I mentioned before, was we provide as many youth programs as possible. So we're providing opportunities for kids to sort of get the ball rolling early on.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly,
put them in a better place, set them up for success, right?
Yeah, encourage them, find those talents. We have lots of kids interested in art. We're going to let a few of them paint some murals in the back hallway where we run our summer camps. Encourage them to be part of things, part of the community. But that's other than, just supporting people. We'll have to see what the next couple of years bring financially for everybody. I mean, what's deemed affordable for housing is not what. At last glance, it was by CMHC standards, $900 for a one-bedroom unit is considered affordable. So, yeah.
Yeah. At some point, you have to wonder, where does this all going to go, right? And I mean, I try not to. I'm like anxiety ridden when it comes to stuff like that. And I'm like doom and gloom. Like Carrie, my wife, will tell you, it's like I'm the guy on Reddit reading all these different things. And, at some point you have, you know, how I guess the divide between the very, very rich and the very, very not rich is growing. And I think there needs to be some common ground. What that looks like. I think there's a lot of balls in the air right now with, gas prices and the switch over to electric, and then getting people to start to think of that concept. But then hydro's up, and the list goes on and on. So I think because we have folks like you and your staff, I think that that's another safeguard for folks to get off into the right sort of realm of where they need to be and where they want to be in life. So keep up the great work. It's always great to reconnect with you. I hope March break rolls out for you guys flawlessly. I'm sure it will. Knock on wood. And if there's any opportunities for folks, again, you welcome them to come in, check it out, see what you guys are doing, and then get involved too, even from a business or even a corporation standpoint, to see what you guys are about.
Absolutely. I love giving people tours. I love to brag about all the hard work my staff do.
And the best way to contact you, I mean, folks can message me here on the podcast, or they can find you guys on Facebook too, and your website.
Yep, Facebook website is wfhcp.com. The phone number here is 519-258-4501. But yeah, we'll answer any through social media or through the website or by calling.
Always good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you so much for making some time for me tonight. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Arms.
Anytime. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Angela Yakonich, who is the executive director from a group that is doing some incredible work for folks here in the Windsor Essex County area, and really talking about those partnerships and social enterprises too, from the Windsor Family Homes and Community Partnerships group. So they've got the Kids First Food Bank. They've got a number of different programs that they operate, community family fitness, and more. They're located in the downtown core as well. So if you can find out more about them on their Facebook page or surf for them online as well. So Angela, thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight on the project. So don't forget, you can check out past projects on our Facebook page. Check us out on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. And we are back next Tuesday with another guest here on the show. We'll be having an in-depth discussion and chat with Morgan Ryan, the morning show host at Country 95.9 here in Windsor. She's a good friend of mine, very entertaining and always hilarious to chat with. So Morgan's going to be on the show with us. Hopefully not keep her up too late as she wakes up at the crack of dawn to hit the airwaves on Country 95.9 here in Windsor, Essex. So that'll be next Tuesday at 8 o'clock here on the project. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. Stay warm. And again, make sure to contribute where you can when you support this show. Don't forget that we have a couple of options to help us out with the Canadian Blood Services, the Windsor Essex County Humane Society, and the Ronald McDonald House. Thanks for watching.